Story 1. About 30 minutes ago, I told a close friend of mine about this encounter over the phone, and he told me I should post it here, so I am. Yesterday, I was out at a small coffee shop in my municipality in Sweden. I come here almost every day and have been for over 20 years. I work as an architect, and one of the ways I work best, building models and making drawings, the creative process, is by listening to music. Not loud rock music. Unrelated, at the time this happened, the songs I was listening to were The Devil and I, Slipknot. To Be Alone, Five Finger Death Punch. Babel's Tower, Primordial. Pneuma, Tool. Hooker with a Penis, Tool. Now back to the story. The old lady who works at the store, we'll call her Eva, knows me very well, to the point where she has my order waiting for me when I get there. During Corona, Eva's coffee shop hasn't been doing too well, so I make sure to leave her generous tips, and on slower days for me, I even help her tidy up the place when there's nobody around. I usually sit at a window seat, perpendicular to the counter, facing out onto the road. There's a church directly across from the coffee shop, and nothing much else around besides residential houses. I'm sitting, drawing the church, eating my kernel bowl and drinking coffee when I see a dad and two small children, probably around 8 or 9, come out of the church and into the coffee shop. Now, my town isn't a large place, and Sweden isn't a very Christian country. I'm atheist, hence the devil's music. I don't recognize any of the three. They don't look Swedish, maybe Mediterranean, and seem to get cold by just crossing the street. They walk in, order their meal. I notice the kids getting fussy. One of them stamps his foot, which is what got my attention, and I look up at Eva and smile at her. She deals with children a lot and likes them, unlike me, and is generally really sweet with them. Then I hear a shout. Being a 26 male, I'm kind of protective of Eva, because she is old and frail, and I'm very well built, so I take off one side of my headphones to listen to what's going on. Entitled Dad, I want a discount on this cinnamon bun. I can't afford your absurd full price, and I'm struggling. Think of Corona, my kids just want a dessert. Eva, I'm sorry, but I'm struggling just as much as you. I own a coffee shop in this small town. I don't care. I'm the one with little kids, and I'm the one who has to support a full family on my own. Your husband is probably dead anyway. You're ancient. At this point, I take off my headphones, big no-no, and walk over to the guy. I'm 188 centimeters, and he looks to be about 170-175, so I'm taller and stronger. I can tell he's a bit intimidated by my presence, but that's the point. My music is still playing, bigger no-no, as I ask him if there's a problem. He looks at me for a second. Him, what's coming out of your headphones? Me. The amazing guitar solo of my favorite song, To Be Alone, and your nonsense is making me miss it. What's? He cuts me off. Turn it off. He takes a step away from me and ushers his kids behind him. Why would I do that? I came over here to stop you from attacking Eva, not to get attacked myself. The dad, still slowly moving away. Please turn off that devil's song. I will, once you apologize to Eva. I'll call the police on you for being a missionary and servant to Satan. Get away from me. I'm sorry, what? Then this guy actually pulls out his phone, types 911, and holds it out to me like it's a bomb ready to go off. I'm serious. In Sweden, he typed 911 into his phone. He has his kids behind him like he's protecting them from the unholy wrath of Satan or something. Him. Get away from me. Poor Eva was just kind of standing there, dumbfounded looking at this grown man with two kids yelling at me for having loud music in my headphones. Mind you, none of the songs I listed are anywhere close to doom death metal. He headbutted me, then ran out the door, leaving his kids in the coffee shop. I just stood there, looking between Eva and the kids, who've both started crying. Seconds later, before I can call 112, he came back with a giant golden cross, holding it out to me like I'm some sort of demon, shouting that I'd better get off of the mortal plane, yada yada yada. At this point, the situation went from this guy trying to get a discount on a cinnamon bun to trying to exorcise me. Eva and I can barely contain ourselves because this isn't even scary. He's obviously on drugs and doesn't even look threatening. When nothing he's trying works, jumping up and down, shouting, etc., he grabs his kids and leaves. After about a minute, Eva and I are laughing hard at this guy's absolute idiocy. Sometimes I wonder what comes over people to even be capable of this sort of thing. I guess drugs? Anyway, that's all there is to it. Edit. Someone asked. The shirt I was wearing was in fact Five Finger Death Punch's Jekyll and Hyde shirt. This may have contributed towards his freakout. Story 2. So, some backstory before I start the actual story. This happened about halfway through last year for my now ex-boyfriend's birthday. He had just turned 19. We were dating at the time and had been together for just over a year, in case that causes any confusion. I'm an 18-year-old female and have been out of a job ever since my casual position unexpectedly dropped me in late 2019. My ex actually laughed at me and talked down to me about that. Because of that, money has been difficult for me to come by, and I often don't have a lot on hand for giving gifts during birthdays. I come from a large family with 4 siblings and 3 parents, including my stepdad and stepsister, and within the week and a half leading up to this story, my mom, dad, and stepdad all had birthdays, so my bank account was basically drained. My ex knew I didn't have a lot of money and sometimes brought it up at awkward times. On the evening this story takes place, I really wasn't in the mood for physical affection because I had been anxious all day. I have anxiety, and while I wasn't grumpy and did my best to be cheerful for his birthday, I just felt overwhelmed by things like cuddling. The story begins. So, my then boyfriend invited me to his birthday celebration with him and his family. Of course, I accepted, because I wanted to help him celebrate his special day, and his family felt like a second family to me, so I had no hesitation. However, I ended up having an anxiety attack because, as I mentioned earlier, I had very little money and couldn't buy him a meaningful gift. That made me feel really guilty because he often went out of his way to give me small surprises, and I never had enough money to return the favor. Whenever I did try to do something nice in return, it would either be rejected or I'd end up feeling like it just wasn't good enough. He was very into building blocks and a particular science fiction franchise, so I made and decorated a cake for his birthday. Cake decorating is my passion. The cake featured the iconic "It's over Anakin, I have the high ground" scene from Revenge of the Sith, using small figurines to represent the characters, which had been a long-standing promise of mine. In addition to the cake, I decided to bake him a Nutella swirled blondie slice because I had the ingredients already. I know it probably wasn't the most thoughtful or expensive gift, and I feel bad that I hadn't planned further ahead to save up for something more meaningful. But I've taken that as a lesson to carry forward with my current boyfriend. I should also mention that my ex is a very picky eater, and I've sometimes been on the receiving end, or at least in the vicinity of his food-related tantrums. For example, once he pushed away a bowl of stew I brought home from my food studies class because it had traces of dried apricot. He was actually enjoying the stew until I told him what was in it. I'd forgotten to list the ingredient before he started eating. So, I was pretty anxious about whether he'd even like the slice I made him. Anyway, when he opened the tin with the slice inside, his face fell. It was an expression of absolute disappointment, the likes of which I'd never seen before. I asked if he was okay, and he said, "It's not what I expected." I replied that I knew, and I told him I wished I could have done better for him after everything he'd done for me. He quietly put the tin aside and became rather withdrawn, and I felt awful even though I knew I had done the best I could with what I had. Later on, we were upstairs in his room, and as I mentioned earlier, I wasn't really in the mood for cuddles. Still, I made an effort even though I was feeling exhausted and miserable. He continued to insist on affection. I eventually brought up the birthday present and told him he looked very disappointed. His explanation was as follows, paraphrased. "I wasn't expecting that." Me. What were you expecting? Him. Well, I've been making hints for ages that I wanted that particular building block set. I thought I made it clear when I suggested that $50 be the maximum amount we spend on each other for birthdays and Christmas. I've been talking about that set for a while. Me. Hold on, you expected me to get you that set. Every time you mentioned it, it sounded like you were planning to buy it for yourself. I know what I gave you wasn't ideal, and I feel terrible because I wanted to get you something better. But I don't have money, definitely not $50 just lying around. I know it didn't meet your expectations, and I'm truly sorry, but I did the best I could with what I had. Him. I thought I was pretty clear with what I wanted. But, I guess. And here, he used that weary, let-down voice the kind people use when they're trying to act like they're okay, but clearly aren't. You know what? It's fine. I felt even worse, like I had truly let him down, especially after everything he and his family had done for me. Later on, he messaged me saying he'd tried the slice and that it tasted all right. Even though he later messaged to say the slice tasted all right, it felt like a weak attempt to smooth things over. There was no acknowledgement of the effort or thought that went into what I did for him, just a lukewarm comment that honestly made me feel worse. It wasn't just about the gift itself. It was the overall energy he gave off that evening. I had gone out of my way to create something handmade and meaningful because I couldn't afford anything extravagant. Instead of seeing that for the gesture it was, he acted like I'd failed some kind of relationship test. I kept thinking back to all the times he told me he appreciated the small things, and how he'd say gifts didn't need to be expensive to mean something. But when it came down to it, he made me feel like I had messed up simply because I didn't meet his unspoken expectations. After that night, the tone of our relationship began to shift. I noticed more and more that he would bring up things I couldn't afford or hadn't done well enough, especially when it came to material gifts or physical attention. It made me second-guess myself constantly, even when I was doing my best. Looking back, I think he expected me to perform in ways that weren't reasonable given my situation, and he rarely extended the kind of empathy that he expected from others. He wanted a perfect birthday gift, but ignored the fact that I had put hours into baking, decorating, and trying to make the day special without spending money I simply didn't have. Even when I tried to explain my side, it always seemed to circle back to how disappointed he was, as if my feelings didn't matter. That moment his reaction to the gift became symbolic of our dynamic. I'd show up with all I had, and he'd still look for what was missing. Eventually, that contributed to our breakup. I realized that I needed someone who saw value in effort and sincerity, not just someone who measured affection by price tags or how closely something aligned with their personal wish list. To be clear, I don't blame him for being surprised or even mildly disappointed. I get that people have expectations, but there's a respectful way to express that without making someone feel worthless. A simple thank you, even if it wasn't his favorite dessert, would have gone a long way. As for me, I learned a lot. I learned that genuine effort doesn't always get the appreciation it deserves, but that doesn't mean it wasn't valuable. And I learned to be more thoughtful with money and gifts in the future, but also not to tie my self-worth to how someone reacts to a present, especially when I'm doing my best with what I've got. Now, with my current boyfriend, things are different. He values small, handmade things and always notices the effort behind them. It feels good to be seen and appreciated, not just for what I give, but for why I give it. Story 3. I always hoped that I would never have to write a story here, but finally, an entitled parent came into my life. So first meet everyone in the story. So this happened about a month ago. There was an event at my home and some of my family and my girlfriend were there. Me and her were chilling in my room, and she just goes to use the restroom. I started browsing Reddit on my phone. The entitled kid had come into my room at this point. I hadn't noticed him. I was looking at memes, and due to the greatness of our memes, I came across one which had swear words, a picture of a character with some mildly inappropriate content, and I started laughing. He then just kind of sneaks up on me and says, "What are you laughing at?" I had the Samsung Z Flip phone which I had bought with my own money after saving up a lot. The thing is that it kinda closes like a book. So I closed it in a hurry to not show the kid what I was looking at, as he was only 8-9 years old. He got interested by the unique way it closes and wanted to see it. I tried to make up excuses. Suddenly he starts crying and my entitled aunt comes in. She asks what happened and her son told her. Now she demanded, not asked, but demanded me to show him the phone. I tried to tell her with looks why I wasn't showing it to him, but she was in such a rage she wasn't paying any attention. She just snatched the phone from me and gave it to her son. Luckily there was a password. Unluckily, I kept it as 2580. I know I'm dumb. He started trying random passwords while my aunt was shouting at me to tell him the password. At this moment, my girlfriend comes out of the washroom, and as she likes the kid and doesn't understand the situation at that point, she says 25, but then she understands my looks and changes the subject. Apparently 25 was enough for the kid to guess the password because he does, and starts reading out the meme. After hearing him say a swear word, she snatches the phone from him and looks at it. And apparently the picture of the character and the use of the F word gave her a completely different impression of what I was doing on the phone. She goes into an absolute rage and literally snaps the phone in two. Remembering this is an over $1,300 phone that I saved up on my own, and then throws it on the ground and stomps on it. This was enough for me too. I start shouting at her. Then she sees my laptop in the room and says she's taking it for her son as he's wanted one for a while, as compensation. I try to stop her as this laptop had all my projects on it that I have worked on for more than 3 years. But she just manually pushes me back into the wall, takes my laptop and grabs the kid by the arm and leaves. I actually got hurt as my shoulder slammed into a wall shelf at my wall and I fell to the floor. My girlfriend tries to help me and calls my dad, who goes furious at her sister-in-law, entitled aunt, and asks her to leave the house with her son right that instant. A doctor was called and I recovered the very same day, as it was only a bruise and some bleeding, and in the evening, my dad was furious and called the cops on my aunt. Turns out she has stolen, or taken as she and her son deserved those items, in her words, a lot more than my laptop. She was arrested at that time for child abuse and theft. I don't know anything about her sentence, or even if she's been tried yet. My entitled aunt is living with us now for the time being, and has become a lot less entitled. I guess it was just her mother's influence. My laptop unfortunately got destroyed, as it turns out, when she saw there was a password on it. She threw it out of the window. My dad got me a new and better laptop and wanted to get me a phone, but I told him I'll save up again, and I didn't really need that expensive of a phone anyways. My work was destroyed with the laptop, but with the help of my girlfriend, I have redone half of it already. I don't know what's going to happen to my aunt, but I know we're not going to hear from her ever again. And my parents are now legally guardians of the entitled kid. I guess I should just call him Kind Kid now because he's very kind now. Story 4. This happened 3 months ago, and I'm still dealing with the aftermath. I'm a 28-year-old software developer who works from home, and I live in a quiet suburban neighborhood with my golden retriever, Buddy. I adopted Buddy 2 years ago after my mom passed away from cancer. He was her therapy dog at the hospital, and when she died, I couldn't bear to let him go to someone else. He's been my emotional support through the worst period of my life. I work remotely for a tech company, which means I'm home most days with Buddy. He's incredibly well-trained and gentle. He literally used to comfort dying patients at the hospital. Our daily routine involves morning walks, him napping near my desk while I work, and evening walks around the neighborhood. Everyone in our area knows Buddy, and most people love him. He's never shown aggression toward anyone, not even squirrels. About 6 months ago, a new neighbor moved in next door. Karen seemed normal at first, middle-aged, divorced, worked some corporate job. But I noticed she would cross the street whenever she saw me walking Buddy. I figured she just wasn't a dog person, which is fine. Not everyone has to like dogs. The problem started about 2 months after she moved in. I was in my backyard with Buddy, throwing his tennis ball around. My yard is completely fenced, so he couldn't get out even if he wanted to. Karen appeared at the fence line and told me that my dog was disturbing her peace. I apologized and explained that we were in our own yard and Buddy wasn't even barking. She didn't care and said she had a severe phobia of dogs, calling Buddy a beast that made her sick. I tried to be understanding and explained that Buddy and I had every right to use our own property. She got angry and said I was being inconsiderate, claiming that a decent person would get rid of that animal. I was shocked. Who tells someone to get rid of their pet? I tried to be polite and explained that Buddy was well trained and never left our property. She walked off, talking about calling animal control. Over the next few weeks, Karen escalated things. She called animal control 6 times, claiming Buddy was aggressive and dangerous. Each time, the officers would come out, see Buddy's gentle nature, and leave after apologizing for wasting my time. She called the police twice, claiming he was a menace to the neighborhood. The cops knew this was nonsense. One officer even asked to pet Buddy because his daughter wanted a golden retriever. Karen started leaving nasty notes in my mailbox. The messages said things like my beast was ruining property values and that some people had real problems and didn't need to see that monster every day. I kept the notes, thinking I might need them later. Then came the morning that changed everything. I was working on an important project deadline when I smelled smoke. At first, I thought someone was having a barbecue, but the smell got stronger. I looked out my window and saw smoke coming from my garage. I grabbed Buddy and ran outside, calling the fire department. The fire department arrived quickly and managed to save most of the house, but my garage was completely destroyed. Along with my car, my tools, and boxes of my mom's belongings I'd been storing there. The fire chief told me they'd investigate the cause. While the firefighters worked, Karen appeared in her yard, watching everything with this satisfied smile. It made my stomach turn. The fire chief came over to tell me they found evidence this fire was set intentionally. There was an accelerant trail leading from my garage to the property line. I asked in disbelief if someone had set this on purpose. He confirmed that yes, someone had, and they'd need to call the police and start an investigation. That's when I noticed Karen had gone back inside her house. Something felt wrong. The police investigated for 3 days. They interviewed neighbors and checked security cameras. Mrs. Johnson across the street had a doorbell camera that caught something interesting. The footage showed Karen sneaking into my yard at 5 a.m., carrying a gas can. She poured gasoline around my garage and lit it before running back to her house. When the police knocked on Karen's door, she initially denied everything. But when they showed her the video footage, she broke down and confessed. She said she couldn't take it anymore and that my dog was ruining her life. She claimed she had a phobia and that Buddy just being there was torture. The police officer told her she was under arrest for arson. Karen tried to defend herself, saying she didn't mean for the fire to spread and just wanted to scare me into moving. The officer explained that she had set fire to someone's property and that was a felony. Karen kept trying to make excuses, telling me I didn't understand because she had a medical condition and that my dog triggered her anxiety. I asked her in disbelief if she had decided to burn down my house because of that. She frantically explained that she wasn't trying to burn down my house, just the garage. She thought if I saw how serious she was, I'd finally get rid of Buddy. The police arrested her on the spot. Turns out Karen had been researching how to start fires on her computer, and she'd bought the gasoline for this purpose. It wasn't a moment of panic. She'd planned this for weeks. During the court proceedings, Karen's lawyer tried to argue that her dog phobia was a disability and that my having Buddy was discrimination. The judge was not impressed and told Karen that having a phobia didn't give her the right to commit arson. He explained that there were legal remedies if she believed someone's pet was genuinely dangerous, and she hadn't pursued any of them. Karen tried to argue that she had tried by calling animal control and the police. The judge reminded her that they had all found the dog to be well behaved and properly contained on private property. Karen got sentenced to 3 years in prison and has to pay full restitution for the damage to my property. The amount was over $80,000, covering my car, the garage reconstruction, and my mom's belongings that were destroyed. Her homeowner's insurance dropped her, and she had to sell her house to pay the restitution. The judge ordered that she's not allowed to live within 500 feet of any residence that has pets once she gets out of prison. Good luck finding housing with that restriction. Buddy and I are doing fine now. The new garage is actually nicer than the old one, and the whole neighborhood has rallied around us. 3 families have gotten golden retrievers since the incident, saying they wanted dogs as wonderful as Buddy. Karen's old house sold to a lovely couple who have 2 dogs and 3 cats. Sometimes I still can't believe someone tried to burn down my house because they didn't like my dog. But Buddy is still the best boy in the world. Story 5. So this happened about a week ago when I was asked to fill in for a friend at a ski center. Yes, ski centers are allowed to be open in my country due to it being outside. The layout of the area is somewhat important to the story, so allow me to give you a short tour. There are 5 ski lifts from left to right. Family lift, kiddie lift, which is just a rope that the kids hold on to, and it takes them about 10 up. 2 anchor lifts beside each other, and the last one leads to the street, which is for rails and jumps. None of them are gondola lifts, as the center only requires anchor lift. I was working at the so-called family lift, which is meant for families with little kids. This means that the slope is small compared to the rest, so that everyone in the family can ride together. Next to the lifts I was working at is a sledding slope, which is for people who just want to come sledding, and this is free, meaning you don't need a ski pass to enter. Also, every lift has a snowmobile, and I had mine parked next to the lift so I could have somewhere to sit if I wanted to, and due to the cold, the suspension was somewhat frozen, which meant that when someone took a seat on the snowmobile, it made a sound. Now to the story we have entitled Snow Karen, Hexbon 1 and 2 and me being me. I was helping a young girl onto the lift as she was having problems. That was one of my tasks at work, and when I had my back turned while helping the girl, I heard the suspension creak, and my first thought was that, oh, my turn to go get lunch, as I thought it was my coworker, but nope. I turn around and see 2 of Karen's Chexbon trying to start the snowmobile. Me? Hey, what on earth do you think you're doing? Kid 1. We want to drive the snowmobile. Kid 2. Yeah, we're going to drive it up the slope. Me? No, you can't do that. You are not old enough. You have to be at least 16 to drive one, and they were about 5-6 years old. And you can't drive this unless you work here. But Mom said we could. I don't care what your mom says. You are not allowed on it. I need you to learn. And guess who cut me off? Karen, why are you talking to my babies? Me? Ma'am, are they your kids? Yes, now tell me why you are talking to them. They were on the snowmobile and trying to start it to take it for a joyride. Suo, I told them they could. Ma'am, they can't do that. They're not old enough. They don't work here, and they haven't been trained on how to operate it. Oh, stop being so rude. Just teach them how to operate it now. I can't. They're not old enough, and unless you work here, you are not allowed to drive it in the area. Kids. Mom, we want to ride it. Tell him to start it. Now look at what you've done. You made them sad. I demand you start the snowmobile and let them ride. At this point, one of our regulars and former co-worker came to the lift and gave me a look. You need help, son? I told him. Oh, hi, Mike. Not real name. Tell our boss I said hello. I know it sounds cheesy to say we used a code, but we have all been told that if we are in a situation where we need the owner, and we don't want to say it out loud, for one reason or another, to if possible tell someone who works or has worked there to tell the owner I said hello, and the boss would come down if possible. Anyways, he understood, and he went up with the lift and down the slope towards the office. Now during that 10-second window, Karen had climbed the fence and joined her kids at the snowmobile to get it started. And then something struck me, and I don't know why I didn't notice it before, but no one of them was in ski gear, No helmets, ski boots, skis, or anything, and the Karen had left 2 sleds behind the fence. Me, still somehow polite. Ma'am, why aren't any of you in ski gear? Her, because we decided to just go sledding. You can't be on this side of the gate if you aren't planning to ski. Yes, we can. We are paying customers. We ate inside the restaurant. Doesn't matter. You can't be here unless you are going to ski. Now shut up, you little idiot. We are paying customers, and that means we have the right to be here and the right to ride the snowmobile. At this point, I lost it, and I decided to use my army voice. We have compulsory military service in my country. Okay, that's it. Get off the snowmobile now. I commanded them, and they all looked shocked. I guess they never expected a reaction like that from me. Her, still shocked. H, how dare you talk to me like that? You need to show your elders some respect. I cut her off with, I have tried to be polite and to tell you kindly to leave the snowmobile, and yet you have refused. Do you realize that your kids could die or get injured, or even worse, kill or injure someone if they drove this thing? You and your kids need to leave, as you clearly have nor right nor deserve the right to be here. At this point, she tried to play the victim card when a family of 6 came to the lift. Karen, help, help. This boy is harassing me and my babies. Luckily for me, the family didn't believe her when I explained the situation, and I assured them that no help was needed. Now Karen decided that she would play the infamous I know the owner card. Her, with a smug look on her face, said, You know I know the owner, so unless you want to lose your job, I suggest you start this snowmobile. Don't know why she didn't care about my warning about her kids killing or injuring themselves or others. Oh, you know the owner? Yes. At this point, I saw the owner walking towards us as the regular had sent him. Me. Well, here is your chance to explain to him why I should get fired, I said as I waved at him. I could see her worry a little, but she quickly shook it off. Owner, so what is the problem here then? She flew into a rant. Your employee has been so rude towards me and my kids and refused to let my babies ride the snowmobile, even though I know we are allowed to do so as paying customers. Owner, no. You are not allowed to because it is dangerous and wasteful. Also, I can see that none of you are dressed to be on this side of the fence, and thus I can assume you have not paid to be here. Well, what about him? She said as she pointed at me. He is not dressed for skiing either. Well, that is because he works here, and he should not be dressed for skiing. Her, slowly realizing she is fighting a losing battle, decided to go for the harassment claim. Well, he harassed me and my babies, and I demand he is fired for his behavior. Now the owner is a chill guy and has a great sense of humor and does not take nonsense from anyone, and he saw he had an amazing chance to strike down this Karen. Well then, should we see what audio the cameras have recorded? No, that is not necessary, but I demand he be fired for his. The owner cut her off. And I guess I should also tell my daughter that her boyfriend is a horrible person for harassing a mother and her children, right? Oh, how devastated she will be, he said sarcastically. You see, what Karen didn't know is that I have been dating the owner's daughter for 2 years, and when I have time, I spend the weekends at her family's house. Now she realized that her battle was lost, and just on cue, started shrieking about how she will leave a horrible Facebook review, how the police will hear about this, how she will never come back because we are so horrible to customers, yada yada yada. You guys know the drill. After she left, me and the owner started laughing, and he said he would save the security footage because he wanted to keep this as a Karen takedown trophy. Not long after, I got my lunch break and I called my girlfriend to tell her about the encounter, and she started laughing as well. I do hope I get to see her again so I can ask her if she would like to see the owner again. Thanks for reading. Hope you guys liked it.